Great question. So first thing we have to do is understand what he's trying to win.
Okay, to answer this, we first need to get into the divine narrative and understanding what was Satan's objective in the first place. So as best as I can tell, the angels predated the creation of humanity. And so as a result of that, there was a time period where the angels were with the Lord prior to our creation and our formation. And so when God created human beings and told the angels that the human beings were going to be his legitimate children, and that eventually they would rule and reign with him over all creation, and that the angels would be their servants, there was a faction of angels who did not like this and felt like they were the rightful heirs, and really ultimately they just felt like God made the wrong decision. And so it would seem that this is ultimately what led to the fall of Satan and many of the other angels, outside of the issue of the angels who came down and slept with human beings and then being cast out of heaven. I don't know exactly how those two things correlate. I just, kind of piecing all the components of the story together. And so when you have a situation like this, and I think we can kind of derive a little bit of how this narrative is playing out from the story of Job. Satan is going to and fro on the earth. God asks him, hey, what have you been up to? And he's like, I've been here, I've been there, I've been out seeing what's up. And he's like, God says, well, have you considered my servant Job? Now this is an interesting question, because considered him how? Like, why would Satan even think to consider someone like Job? Like what was Satan out roaming the earth doing in order that he would even have a reason to consider Job? So apparently there was some pre-existing context for what Satan was doing, and God already knew what he was doing. And so this pre-existing context between them allowed that interaction to just make perfect sense, and for Satan to immediately respond and say, oh yeah, I've seen Job, I checked this guy out, he only serves you because you've taken such great care of him. But guarantee you take all his stuff away, he will curse you and spit on your name. Now that's an interesting reaction, and I think it gives us, again, some kind of context of what was going on in the ancient world. So based on that interaction, it would seem that Satan was looking across the earth for evidence that his hypothesis about humanity being the wrong choice was accurate. Whereas God, on the other hand, immediately holds Job up as a demonstration that he was actually right in choosing humanity, and that our capacity for good and our capacity for loyalty and for basically being able to not be moved by our circumstances and still act rightly and still adjudicate justly, right? And so from this interaction, it would seem that the whole aim of Satan is simply to prove that humanity is not the right heir, that God made the wrong choice. And this isn't just an evidentiary issue between Satan and God, right? Because God could just eliminate Satan. I mean, if you think about, look at Revelation, God doesn't even throw Satan into the lake of fire. He tells Michael to. So clearly Satan is, at least in the hierarchy of beings, Satan is not particularly powerful. At least not in the physical sense anyway. And so the question is, it's like, who is Satan trying to prove that God is wrong to? Clearly it's not God, and clearly it's not human beings, because he thinks we're just, imbeciles that, if you just take our toys away, we immediately will fall apart. So he clearly has little to no respect for humanity. So I would argue that Satan was trying to prove to the rest of God's creation, to the rest of the angels and whatever other creatures exist in the heavens, he was trying to prove to them that God had made the wrong choice. So essentially what you have here is you have two opposing sides, almost like a debate, right? Where you have two opposing sides, and on each of those sides are potentially a group that is that each side is trying to sway. And so all of this is just simply about who's right. Is God right, or is Satan right? Now, I know that seems to kind of trivialize all of the pain and suffering on earth, and that's a whole other video I'll have to make some other time because I don't have time for it here. But we just, again, we need to kind of understand our existence and just everything that goes into this through the right narrative structure in order to understand like what's happening in a lot of these things, in a lot of these situations. Okay, so now with all of that as the backdrop to your question, why is Satan still doing all of this stuff when he knows that he can't win? I think if you were going pre-Jesus, right? Pre-Jesus, it was about, I think, proving that humanity was the wrong choice. And he probably thought that when humanity killed Jesus, that he had won. Like that, I mean, that's the moment. You know what I mean? Like God literally sent his own son, the perfect person, and Satan would have been fully aware of exactly who Jesus was. So he sent his own perfect son to the earth to save humanity. And what did they do? They beat him within an inch of his life, and then they murdered him in the most brutal and horrific way possible. They held him up to contempt in front of all of creation, spit on him, and sent him to the grave. I mean, if you were going to make an argument about a group being unworthy to rule, unworthy to be your children, I just don't think you could make a better argument. I mean, we provided Satan with the most compelling evidence that has ever existed in human history. He must have, at the death of Jesus, thought to himself, I have won. But then Jesus comes back, he takes the keys to the kingdom, and he says, nope, I forgive them. Okay, so now you have a ruler who has been fully deposed. All of his power and all of his authority has been stripped from him, and he no longer has the right to control humanity or to control the earth beyond what he can influence us to do in the earth. But when we encounter him, we have the legal right and the legal authority to say, get behind me, Satan, for you have the things of human beings in mind and not the things of God. And so where does that leave us present state? So Jesus said that Satan roams around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. He said that he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And so what that seems to indicate to me is you have a deposed ruler who is going to take out as many people as he possibly can before he is fully dethroned and taken out. It's kind of like a cult leader that knows that they're coming for him, and he's not going to get out alive, and so he just convinces everybody to kill themselves because he wants to take out as many as he possibly can on his way out. That kind of seems to be the situation. So, if he hated us before, man, his hatred for us now has got to be, a million times, because Jesus forgave us, and now he really has no power. He has no hope of proving God wrong, because God has already been proven right through Christ and the very existence of the church. And so it would seem to me that now the target is just simply to tear up as much as you can on your way out. So those are my thoughts on that. Obviously, there's a lot, we could get crazy deep into that topic, but hopefully that gives you kind of like some high-level architecture to work with when you're thinking about this stuff. Thanks for the question. As always, I love your questions. And if anybody else is watching this for the first time, if you have a question, I'd love to answer it for you. Drop it in the comments, and I'll make a video. See y'all next time.